Hello and welcome to Planning Your Chuck Close Drawing. My name is Eric, and today we're going to be taking our 18 by 24 drawing paper and making a grid, similar to how Chuck Close did in his signature style. I do have a source material printed out 8 by 10 inches, but I'm not really going to worry about that yet. I'm going to focus mostly on my larger paper first. This is our 18 by 24 drawing paper. I made a quick sketch here to show you some of the measurements. Basically, we have a piece of paper that's 18 by 24, and I want a 16 by 20 grid perfectly centered in the center of an 18 by 24 sheet of drawing paper. So if it's 20 on the 24-inch axis, that would be 2 inches of negative space on the sides. And if it's 16 on an 18-inch axis, that would be 1 inch of negative space on either side. So those are going to be my first measurements. So I'm going to be starting on the 24-inch axis, and I'm going to be trying to do a 20-inch section within a 24-inch axis. Easiest way of doing this. Coming from the side, I'm going to measure 2 inches. Bring it to the top somewhere up here. Make sure that this is not blocking me. I'll come all the way up to here just in case. Mark a 2 inch. Then I'm going to turn my ruler over. My 2 marks that are 2 inches away from the edge. I'm going to make a mark. First measurement done. Moving on. Next one. Same thing. I'm going to do 2 inches on the other side. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to measure at the bottom. Give myself a mark at 2 inches. Come to the top and do the same thing. Remember that on the side that has the perforation, measure from the area that's going to be ripped off, not the area that was part of your spiral that's going to be thrown away. 2 inches. Come all the way across. So now measuring, I should be at 20 inches here, and I sure am. Okay, so that's a first measurement there. So now I have the 18-inch border, and I'm going to try and get a 16-inch section centered on an 18-inch axis. So it's 1 inch on either side. So you notice I usually start on 3 and measure to 2 just to get that 1 inch. Sometimes it's easier than the 1 inch. You get a little bit more space. Whatever works for you, as long as you get 1 inch measurements. I'm coming across. And one final measurement of these first measurements. Do the same thing here. Start at 2 and go to 3, just to help me see it a little bit better. Same thing over here. Connect the dots. That should be 16 inches. And it sure is. On this one, I was maybe 1/8 of an inch off, as you can maybe see right there. That's not a big deal. When you come in and you start doing your 2-inch measurements for your grid, just split the difference a little bit. A 1/16 of an inch on either side is not going to matter. So with that being said, we are now going to start our grid. So I'm going to be making a mark every 2 inches all the way around the box that I just created. And be doing the same thing as far as connecting the marks. So I'm going 2, 4, 6, 8. 10, 12, 14, 16 is already marked. I'm going to go all the way over to this side to make sure that that negative space stays consistent. Because as I said, the line got a little bit wonky. Oh, I see. This one didn't go all the way perfect. That's okay. Once again, 1/16, 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Doesn't really matter in a drawing that's this large. It's not really going to affect the drawing that much. Every 2 inches, looking good. Then we're coming across here, back on 20. Once again, if it's not perfect, just split the difference a little bit. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 14, 16, 18, 20, all the way across. This one's a little bit weird because this is blocking, so I'm just going to turn this over. In the interest of staying consistent. And then here we go, all the way across. Okay, so I've made all my marks. Now, I stress lightly, because I really want you to go lightly. I might go a little bit darker, just so you guys can see it on the demo. But you really want to keep these lines light. At the end of this drawing, the goal is that you do not see any of this grid. This grid is a tool to help you with proportions. That once again is not supposed to be visible in the final quality of the drawing. So once again, I'm coming, and this is the easiest way by far to do a 2 by 2 inch grid, or as we do on our source material, a 1 by 1 inch grid that will translate. Some people try and rush this. They'll just do one side, and they'll try and eyeball it. Those lines become not parallel, they become diagonal, getting smaller, larger in certain sections, and long term just actually make more work for the artist. So just take your time on this section, get it right the first time, and you will thank yourself later. I promise. This is a pretty vital part of being successful in this drawing, as the transferring of proportions totally relies on it. You'll see what I mean. Here's short enough. That one got a little bit off. It's okay. That's okay. Pretty good here. So 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now, you might be saying, oops, I did that horizontally. My picture's vertical. It does not matter. This is going to be the 8-inch border. This is going to be the 10-inch border. I'm just going to flip everything when that happens. So let's do our printout here. So let's take a look and see how our measurements came out on the printout. So horizontal's 8, looking good. Vertical is 10.5. Okay, so if it's anything larger, 10.5, something like that, we do really need to make it 10. So I'm going to edit out a little bit here. So it's just south of 10.5. So make a mark here. Make a mark there. And I'm just going to crop the bottom section off, this bottom 0.5 inches. We do want the printout to be as close to an 8 by 10 inch printout as possible, because that 8 by 10 is going to be transitioning into a 16 by 20, and those ratios need to be correct. Let's double check one more time. 8, obviously that's the same. 10, here we go, much closer. Looking good. Okay, so now we do the same thing, but every 1 inch. We'll crop a little bit off the top too, because we didn't quite get there. So here we go, every 1 inch. You might also notice that this printout is It's a decent quality, but it's not a great quality, and it's also in black and white. I do recommend doing this in grayscale or in black and white, as it is more difficult to transition value from color. So we are going to be doing these in grayscale. So print them in grayscale, that makes it easier. I am also going to have a secondary source that I'm going to be using, which will help me see more specific details after I get the proportions measured out. Final one here. Remember, I'm coming in, I'm marking every inch. On the larger drawing, the larger piece of paper, I did every 2 inches. On the printout, I'm doing every 1 inch. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come across. I'm going to make lines all the way across. Now, drawing on your source material does, once again, make it a little bit more difficult to see what's going on as far as detail on your printout. But the most important thing that this is going to do is take the proportional guessing game out of the equation. It's going to help us get the drawing on the page a lot faster and accurate, rather than having to play with accuracy for a long time. And just having issues with it. This is going to help quite a bit. So I know it seems like a lot of work here at the beginning, but as I've said, it's going to pay off. Most of the time, people say that they make the best drawing they've ever made on this assignment. So if you take the time, I guarantee you're going to surprise yourself. Okay, moving right along onto the vertical axis. My top one's a little bit easier to see here. And I'm doing this in graphite. I might come back and do this in ink. It is a little bit difficult to see in some areas. But I think it's going to work mostly. But if you find somewhere like these areas of dark value, it definitely got blown out as far as the print. I will be pulling up a secondary source to be able to see some of those things, especially in those dark areas, like I said. But overall, I'm not really worried about those things at this point. It's too early to worry about those things. Okay, there it is. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that top one is just a little bit large. We'll just trim that up. Something like that really doesn't matter too much. But as far as proportions and things of that final section, it'll help me see that that's actually the top, and this will fold over. You won't see it anymore. Final thing I may do is actually label my sections. So I can maybe label this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then maybe A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. And then I'll do the same thing on the larger paper. And then when looking for a section, I'll be able to find his eye is in D5. I find D5, and I can find that area more easily with that gridded off section. Okay, final bit of preparation. I took some masking tape and I detacked that masking tape by rubbing it on my clothing and actually on the wall a little bit to try and take some of that stickiness off. And then I masked the outside of my drawing. One of the easiest ways is taking your finger just like this, rubbing it down a couple times. Sometimes when there's too much stickiness on that tape, Over time, it can stick to the paper. It can actually pull the pulp of the page when you're done, which can be very frustrating when you spend a long time on a drawing. Okay, so my guy here, we got Clint Eastwood from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Great classic film. There's a lot of detail in here, especially in the dark area that I really can't see with my printout. Maybe your printer will be better than mine. Maybe you'll be able to see some of that detail. I'm going to be looking for the largest detail first in these first sections of contour. I'm not going to be worrying about value at all. So, once again, a lot of people are going to come in and they're going to think detail, let me try and knock that out first. I'm going to strongly recommend that you do not do that, and you start with the loosest details and build in. So, I'm going to start with the hat here, and then I'm going to build the outside of the face, and some of the clothing, and go in from there. So, looking here, A3, you notice I've also labeled 1 through 8 and A through J here, which will help me stay straight. So I'm looking at A3 and I see the top of the hat. I'm trying to look at the negative space between this side of the hat and the border of my grid. And then looking here, I see that the rim of the hat here is definitely above C3. It's still in B3. And then it comes all the way almost to the exact corner of CB2 right here. Building all the way through C, actually coming off, and then observing this negative space there, and planting in this here. And it's really as easy as that. I'm just trying to see shapes. I see that it just barely dips into D1 here, making sure to include it there. This detail is hard for me to see, so I'm actually going to draw on my source material. By the end of this, I will have drawn all over my source material to help see detail. So this is going to be good. It's into 4 and 5. It's actually going all the way across 4, much higher than I thought. Then it goes, no, actually not. It goes into C4 barely. So that's pretty close to what I thought. All the way down to D8. D8 is here. I know the bottom of the hat's going to come to there. Top fans across. Meets somewhere in there. So I'm not looking for big details or specific details yet. Just looking for the larger shapes. And I'll come back in once I'm more confident what I'm looking at. So this is all in 7, just barely. Outside of the hat. Comes to 7. This is back up. Something across like that. It's a little bit taller on that side. Okay, hat. Looking good. Let's look for the face now. D6. Outside of D6. D6. Outside of D6. Coming in. Going down to E6 on the outside of his face. Observing negative space. It's much easier to see the space by observing the negative space around, like this shape here, this triangular form, than trying to just look at the shape. He's got some facial hair here, so I'm going to try and just do the face. Although the facial hair, especially in the chin and things, are going to be hard not to place in, so that's in G. G. I came down a little low. So that's the great thing about the grid. There's really no guessing game. There might be a little bit of guessing game in the much later stages. But in the early stages, except for things like this, where there's shadowing and details that you can't tell yet, which will give some guessing game, there shouldn't be much. I'm going to sort of just guess a space here. I know this is the shadow of the hat. I'll keep moving. Don't get stuck on any one area for too long, especially in these early stages. Neck comes up, ears within there. Up to here. Show this hat. Something like this. It's sort of a guess right now. Okay with that. Okay, before we do any facial features, let's just do the rest of the body here. So this is gonna come down. This chin within shadows, hard for me to see. So I'm gonna draw all over it. Try and see it a little bit better. There we go. We're not looking for perfect. We're just looking to try and make sure that the main things are in the right quadrant. This is J-H-I, coming down to there. Okay. Working on the collar of the shirt. Stays a little bit lower. All the way up to G. Fans out. Comes up there. So you notice I've been moving fairly quickly. I'm not trying to stay in one area too long. It's a little bit higher. Let's see where we at here. This is J. No, that's I6. I6. Okay, so that's the top of the shoulder. Then it comes up and his neck is a little bit further in. Once again, the beauty of this, take your time. Proportions will just come. They will maybe come slowly, but everything will make sense as you continue to slowly refine space. It's sort of like a longer scarf neck thing on. Okay, this is actually exposed skin, and he's got the collared shirt and like a poncho. Alright, then we have H here. A bit of exposed skin, sort of a fur. And there's some intricate details on that poncho. I'm not even going to try yet. Just going to say we're about there on the form. Okay, and now we're going to do a couple minor facial features without trying to get too detailed. This eye is all within D6, so I'm going to come D6. One of the easiest ways I find eyes is I try and find the tear duct, the outside of the eye. So D6, I know it's there. We're going to find outside of the eye, and tear duct. Outside maybe a little bit higher than that. And on details that really matter, I try and trace them a couple times on my source so I get used to making the shape with my hand. So everyone's a little bit different. Let's see, I'm getting confused here. Okay, that was a print grid. So, okay, this is the top of my grid. So yeah, I'm good. So definitely not perfect, but at this point, I'm really just trying to place large details. Even if I don't draw them perfectly right now, proportions are the most important thing. Just placing them in about the right spot. And I'm not going to do a pupil and stuff yet. There's no real reason because I don't think the eye is placed perfectly. So this eye goes between D4 and D5 here. So here's D4, just barely in there. D5, somewhere over there. Draw it once or twice, get used to it. Come back across. Also looking for larger facial details or value shifts. That's what I think is some of the more important things to try and develop in that contour phase. This is all sort of a larger shadow. As far as facial hair, I'm going to try and save that for later. A lot of times people get too engrossed in some of those details, some of the top details. And they don't get the base layer developed as well. Okay, mouth. Try not to simplify the mouth. Try to actually draw it as you see it. I like to start usually with the center line on a mouth and then build the lips around. It comes almost to that section there. We're going to build the lips around. Maybe even a little bit larger than that. What you'll also notice is that when you start doing a contour, some things will look very odd without any value structure. That's okay. Just trust the grid and continue to draw. Continue to move your hand around fairly quickly, developing different spaces. And when the time comes, you'll have plenty of time to add this amount of detail that we need to, sort of the meticulous detail work that we're going to have to do. But in the early stages, stay loose, build the contour of the form up, and then as you go, you will slowly build detail into these more important areas. I'm not going to be focusing on value at all. I'm going to be focusing mostly on contour and detail. If I do take my time and get the contour the right way, the value will come in a lot easier. So as we continue to build, you'll see me building in value structure, in details in different areas, getting the detail all the way built up into a contour phase, and then I will think about value structure.